Sure, go ahead. Please start us off, Sam, our agent.
All right. So as a preliminary matter, my name is Samantha Holt, Town Staff Conservation Agent for the Newbury Conservation Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Conservation Commission members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bob Connors.
Hello.
Dan Streeter.
Yes.
Diane O'Brien.
Yes.
Mary Rimmer.
Yes.
Pete Pecos.
Yes.
And TJ Conti is not here. All right, good evening. This July 19th, 2022 open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which extends the governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st of 2023. This order suspends the requirement for open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location and allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference, and the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Meeting materials were provided to the commission members prior to the meeting for review and were posted on the Conservation Commission webpage for public access. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak, and if needed, share information on the screen. Please state your intention after you've been called. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. Pete, as the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, we will go down the list of commission members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. For all attendees except commission members and staff, please remember to mute your computer or your phone when you are not speaking. Please use earbuds or earphones with tablets and cell phones. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any response, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If commission members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through Pete, taking care to identify yourself when you wish to speak. For public comment, there will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during public hearings. After commission members have spoken, we will afford the public an opportunity to comment and/or ask questions as follows. I will seek questions and comments through the Zoom raised hand function. For video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the yellow hand that appears. If you don't see a yellow hand, click on the participants button. The list of participants will open and display on the right. At the bottom of this participant area, you will see an option to click on a raise hand button. Please ensure your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You may rename yourself by using the more function next to your name. For telephone participants, to raise your hand in Zoom, hit *9 on your phone's keypad. We will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they are listed, which is determined by the order in which people click on the raise hand function. Each participant will be called on to provide his or her name and address and then ask a question or make a comment. I will afford the applicant or participant or his or her representative the opportunity to reply, and your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. We will then continue down the list in the raise hand column and again afford the participant, applicant, or representative an opportunity to speak. Please note that the chat feature has been disabled for this meeting. Please also note that everyone is expected to conduct themselves in the same manner they would in an in-person meeting. Any disruptions will be addressed once by the chair and should be acknowledged by the disruptor. Any further disruptions will result in complete removal from the meeting with no readmittance. Vulgar or obscene actions or comments will result in immediate removal from the meeting with no readmittance. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Take it away, Pete.
Thank you, Sam. Wonderfully done. As we'll continue on our agenda, we have an indication that our next regular meeting will be on August 2nd as well as August 16th. We do have a special meeting on August 30th. And we have the opportunity to review some minutes from June 7th, June 28th, and July 5th. Commissioners, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes from these listed items?
I have.
Yes. Peter, I don't think we weren't participating.
Yeah, we weren't.
So the new members probably from
Right.
July on.
But I think it's good just to review them, and then I would agree that the three individuals that were present at that time would be the people voting on accepting the minutes. If that's the case, are there any changes or modifications to the minutes? Dan or Mary?
I did not have a chance, unfortunately, to review all of them. I reviewed July 5th. I was going backwards. The only comment I had on the July 5th meeting was regarding the electronic signatures, that we add a statement that was reviewed with town council, I believe, Sam, right?
Yes.
Okay, just that would be my only comment, to make sure that that's included in the minutes.
All right. Dan?
Yeah, I thought everything was good. I'll make a motion to whatever we want to do with June 7 and June 28th to approve those and put them on file. And we can vote on those separately, maybe.
So your motion is to approve the minutes for the 7th and the 28th, or do you want to
That's
just?
correct.
Okay.
That's be three of us here, so.
Yep. Okay, so there is one motion to approve all 3 minutes. Is there a second? Second,
Yeah.
great. Any discussion on the motion?
I have one question. Are
Okay.
we supposed to be addressing typos or things along those matters, or is it just if they're 99.9%? This is a new question here.
No, if you find things, let Sam know so she can clean them up, of course, yep.
Well, it was just like if Mary's name is spelled wrong, like at the beginning
Yeah,
of the
sometimes it
electronic.
autocorrects her.
Yeah, well, that's what
Her
I
and
mean,
Pete,
things
for
like
some
that.
reason, the computer doesn't like their names.
We all know who Mary Rimmer is. I just didn't know if it's.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, all right.
I mean, if it's possible, we can defer the approval of the other 2 sets of minutes so I can look at them. Because
Okay.
there's only 3 of us to vote on it, so.
Okay, so there's a
That would be
motion, it's been
great.
seconded, discussion. If we would like to vote on it, we could affirm that motion, or we could just break apart. So to affirm all 3 and to not affirm, we would have to deny the motion, and then we could take it separately. So the current motion, how do you vote, Dan?
Yes,
Mary, just on the
Yes,
motion,
I'll just make it simple and yes,
so on all 3.
yes.
Okay, that being the case, it looks like we're not going to be breaking them apart, then the chair will vote in favor as well. Great.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so Sam, we have some commission discussions taking place. I see the first is Christine Colstring, B2W LLC of 1 Plum Bush Downs with a DEP number of 050-1332, a request for a partial certificate of compliance for work to replace an existing single-family structure with associated site work. Could you fill in the commission?
Yes, Tom is going to present that one, I believe. That is a partial certificate of compliance. Everything is done except for everything's done. Just the survivability for the plantings. I don't know if Tom, you want to elaborate.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll share my screen. For the record, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. And I just had a curious thought. What happens if I share my Zoom meeting? Do we just get meeting after meeting echoing through the
Meetingception.
space and time? Anyway, sorry, this is not the one we're talking about yet. This is the one. So you may remember this is 1 Plum Bush Downs. We replaced an old dilapidated building that burned down after we permitted it with a pile supported structure. And one of the things we agreed to resolve the DEP appeal was that we would plant under the entire structure. And we agreed to monitor that for a couple of years and just make sure that stuff would survive. We are not committed to everything under the structure surviving. We have a minimum square footage, which is based on 1.5 to 1 shadowing, and based on availability. Basically, we put black grass the Seaside Goldenrod, I think is the other one, and Spartine alterniflora. I'll show you some more photos. You know, it looks really good right now. Everything's green, but what we need to do is kind of see how it goes. Additionally, there are some salt marsh plants that are coming in on their own. So this is the as-built plan. I think the only changes of note were the utility chase, which is constructed here, was moved slightly because of the location of plumbing in the structure. And the sewer line actually runs down independent of the chase, over towards the front of the building. So here's some pictures. These are actually more recent than the ones I was just showing you. You can see how some of the vegetation that was coming in is coming in even further. And we adjusted the historic salt marsh line to essentially follow an extremely high tide staining pattern. And that is the area that we planted. And you can see we filled in within areas that were a little bit more sparse in the vegetation coming in. And also in areas that were bare near the site which were likely impacted by the old structure. You can also see the salt marsh actually in that picture. In this area here, there was no growth before we did this project. So just removing the obstruction that was here from the old building that was having rack kind of build up against the old building has really improved the salt marsh function right in that area. It's actually pretty impressive. So again, just kind of more pictures of the site. You can see the utility chase, and here's the sewer line over here. You can also see the split rail fence. And split rail fence, we did put the shrubs as called for, except in one area right here where the shrubs that were already present had grown up into the area we had proposed the shrub plantings there. So we did not put them where there's the existing, I think it's Rosa rugosa in that area. And the whole area, including the upland area, was seeded with a salt tolerant seed mix, in addition to the plugs. So we think the project, came out well and is consistent with what was approved. And I think that what we'd like to have you do is issue a partial certificate of compliance. There's a sale pending on the property that would allow them to close and to keep their interest rate. And then what we'll do is follow the monitoring protocol that was approved in our amended filing for the next couple growing seasons to assure that, at least enough of this stuff underneath and around the area survives in order to get that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and would like to ask for a partial certificate of compliance.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Sam, your perspective?
Yep, I went out there last week. Everything looks really good. Like Tom said, the marsh is actually coming up on its own, and it's coming in really, really well. All the plantings look good, and it looks like everything was all done in compliance with what was approved.
Okay, great. Let me ask commission members if they have any concerns or questions. Mary?
Yeah, Tom, I just didn't quite catch what you said about the shrub plantings. I thought there were some shrub
Oh, yeah.
plantings.
So we had shown a split rail fence and then shrubs along the split rail fence to help demarcate that salt marsh boundary.
Mhm.
But in the area to the right or east of the structure, the Rosa rugosa had spread so much, it had spread into the area we said we would plant, and it's almost up against the split rail. So we did not plant in that one small section. Everywhere else was planted per plant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dan?
No questions.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, thank you, Pete. Hey, Tom, quick question. Looking at the pictures, it shows a large rack accumulation to the roadway side. How do you mitigate that if it becomes under the, that's an area where rack builds up quite heavily.
Well,
That whole area could just be covered in rack, and it's more of a natural process.
exactly. It is.
What happens then? Is that?
Well, then it temporarily or more or less permanently can shade out parts of the marsh, and it doesn't survive. we don't have to have everything under here survive. The prior structure was obstructing the movement of that rack and causing it to build up. This structure is much more open and will allow that rack to kind of go where it wants to go, which I think is largely just east of the building site and not under it. Although after a king tide, it will accumulate for a little bit, but then another tide will come in and wash it out. So if it intermittently does that, it really doesn't do a lot of harm. But if it continually buries one area, we may have some issues. But we have a square footage number that's equal to the amount of footprint that we opened up from the old building and the 1.5 to 1 sunlight ratio coming in from the sides of the structure. And if any of that does not, doesn't survive, I'm pretty confident that some of the stuff that's further into the 1.5 to 1 will survive. I think we're just going to come back to you if we have an issue with some rack buildup somewhere. If we can make an argument that we have restored a healthy salt marsh and rack accumulation as part of that we should get a final sign off regardless.
I think that was my point, Tom, that we could be looking at this a year and a half from now, and that's completely covered in rack. We're not expecting that the owner would have to remove that rack and replant.
No, actually, the owner should kind of set it and forget it for the area of salt
Right,
marsh under
okay.
here. There's a small upland area, and if they wanted to like hang a kayak or something from that area, maybe that's okay. But the remaining part of the structure should just be, let it become what it wants to become.
Thank you, Tom.
And Diane?
No questions.
Great. I don't have any questions as well. Is there a motion for a request of a partial certificate of compliance?
I'll
I
make
would-
the motion.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Is there discussion on the motion? Or any
No.
conditions that we should
Yes,
touch?
I just want that the monitoring, I would make a motion that we approve the partial certificate of compliance with the monitoring conditions to remain in effect. And I think there was a 2-year growing season of monitoring. Is that right, Sam?
I believe so. Yeah, two growing seasons. Right?
I believe that's what's in our monitoring protocol. You could just refer to the monitoring as approved. Would be
In
the
your,
thing
in
that-
your,
Yeah, the
Yes,
monitoring and
intent.
survival of plantings per the approval would be the outstanding item.
Is that good with you, Mary?
yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No.
Okay. Roll call vote. Mary?
Yes,
Thank you. Dan?
Yes.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
Thank you, Diane.
Yes.
And the chair's in favor as well. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Yes,
Tom.
thank you.
All right, next, Sam, do you need anything else from us with regards to that?
Nope, that one is all set.
Beautiful. Next on our agenda is Michael Hathaway of 48 Green Street, updates of a notice of a violation of unpermitted work in the buffer zone. Sam?
Sorry, just to let you know, TJ did come in. I believe he came in during that
Yes.
presentation. So he is
Can you
here.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just got my computer all figured out here and I could hear everything going on. But you
All
couldn't
right.
see me.
All right, yeah, so Mike Hathaway, so this one is just pretty much just to close this out. All the mitigation work that Tom had proposed for this one that got approved is all done, looks really good. I'm gonna let Tom take over on that one. He can.
Again, Tom Hughes, Hughes
That.
Environmental Consulting. I just wanted to show you, so really the work to be done was removal of those piles next to the riding ring and construction of the berm over by the compost area. That was done. Sam and I both observed it taking place, and then it was hydroseeded. And this is what it looks like now. So this is the area next to the riding ring, well vegetated, well stabilized. And this is the berm with the straw wattle in place as well. So we follow through. It looks really good. Mike Hathaway is really taking the feedback from the commission to heart and really looking to improve the management of his property. He's certainly looking to be respectful of the wetlands and do the right thing. So we'd appreciate closing this out and having the commission consider that this matter is resolved, and also ask that you either write a letter to the file or to Mike to just kind of make it clear that it's completely resolved for perpetuity's sake, because as we all know, 5 or 10 years from now, it might confuse somebody to figure out what really happened here.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Tom. Sam, anything to add to that?
Nope, didn't have any concerns about this one. He's looks like he's all set with this.
Okay, great. Let me just see if commission members have any questions or concerns. Mary?
No, I'm fine. I would agree that a letter to Mr. Hathaway stating that the violations have been addressed is appropriate.
Wonderful. Dan?
No questions.
Thank you. Bob?
Yep. Pete, do you want a motion to close this matter, just so there's something for the minutes? And
Yeah, I
then
just wanted to see-
authorizing Sam?
Yeah, I just want to see if the commissioners had any discussion that we can take into a motion.
Okay, that was my only question. My
Perfect.
only comment.
Great. Diane, any questions?
No, Sam is the person that would write the letter. That's it.
All right, then at this time, I would entertain a motion to close this out, as well as to direct Sam to put a letter into the file. Oh, TJ, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. You're behind my computer screen.
No, I'm still here.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, Peter, I think a lot of the heavy lifting was done earlier, so I'm
okay,
good.
great, thanks.
I'll make the motion that we close this matter and instruct Sam to issue a letter memorializing that.
Thank you,
Second,
thank you. There's a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. I'm just gonna look around the room. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Okay, then Mary, how do you vote?
yes,
Thank you. Dan, how do you vote?
Yes,
Thank you. Bob, how do you vote?
Yes,
Thank you. Diane, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. TJ, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. Chairs in favor as well. Thanks very much, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving on to our public hearings. First on our docket is Beth Quinn of 333rd Street. DEP file is unassigned. It's a notice of intent for work to install a driveway to provide an on-site parking with associated site work, including work within a small section of 33rd Street right of way. Sam, who's going to be speaking on this?
So Tom would be, but I did get a request to have this one continued without discussion.
Okay. That will be the case. Next on our agenda is Stephanie O'Rourke of 18 20th Street, file NCC-404, a request for a determination of applicability for work to replace the previously existing deck and associated renovations. Sam, who'll be speaking on this?
This one is going to be Tom as well.
Tom, here you go.
Right, and Mr. Chairman, I think it's appropriate you still vote on my continuance request on the other matter.
All right, then let me put a pause here. Is there a motion to continue the Beth Quinn 333rd Street?
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion. Second,
thanks, Bob.
All right, thanks. Discussion on the motion? All right, Mary, how do you vote?
Yes,
Great. Dan?
yes,
Thank you, Bob.
yes,
Thanks, Diane.
Yes.
Thanks, TJ.
Yes.
Chairs in favor as well. Tidy it up, Tom. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, so do you want to reopen the 18 20th Street?
I
It's not really a hearing, it's a meeting because it's an RDA.
think we just did. Yep.
Yeah, okay, excellent. All right, so Tom Hughes, Hughes Environmental Consulting, and here for 18 20th Street. And we originally filed the RDA for work on the house, and as I delivered it, I actually found out from Sam that a landscaper also working for the homeowner had inquired about some landscape work to be done. So we put a pause. I asked for that last meeting to continue to tonight. And we have raced to try to not slow things down and come up with a plan that reflects the landscape work and the work on the house. So that's what we have done. And I've sent in an updated Wetland Protection Act description page to Sam, also correcting the error that was actually in it flowed on to the next page and to the next answer. So I've corrected all that with Sam, and let me share the plan for you guys. Okay, so. All right, so this is a house. Basically, it is replacing the existing decks within the footprint of those decks, and the decks will be supported, I believe, with helical piles. The patio, there's an existing patio under the structure. It's going to be replaced with a pervious patio. I believe it's currently concrete, a mix of concrete and concrete pavers that's under there. There is a proposed pea stone area here. It does impact some beach grass in this area here. And then a small gravel area next to the shed back here. And this again has a small impact on vegetation. We've added all that up and come up with additional plantings that will actually offset all impacts in these areas here. And I can pull up some pictures. I just was kind of racing with all the hearings I have tonight to put the presentations together, and have yet to get the pictures from this site loaded in. But the area is sparsely vegetated, a lot of areas of sand, and there's plenty of opportunity to improve the site through plantings. Oh, the other thing to note is that we are looking to extend the existing fence, which is a 50% open, sort of like picket fence that runs along the property line up to this point. We'll be extending that down this side. The owners have a dog and they're just looking to keep it in the property. So that's kind of the extent of the work. And we'd look to get it. And there's also 2 steps to help alleviate grade changes so people can get from the driveway down into the patio area that are to be installed. So that's the extent of the work. So with that, I'd open it up to any questions from the commission, and happy to try to answer them.
Sam, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, so I didn't really have too many concerns about this one. It honestly, even knowing what the project was going to be when Tom sent this to me earlier, it looks like it's a lot. It's really just a lot of gravel and pea stone installation, and then the pavers and everything. The deck replacement, that deck replacement's all going to be in kind. So I didn't really have any concerns about this one at all.
Okay, let's see if the commission members have any questions. Dan, do you have any questions, sir?
You know, it seemed like if just the porches was not a big deal at all. But some of the landscape.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the tail end of that, Dan.
No, some of the landscaping, it just seems like there's quite a bit to consume in your mind there, what's going on and what the replacement is and that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, if I get, so the patio area is an equivalent area. It's rounding it up a little bit, but it's basically existing patio. So there's no significant dune alteration going on here. It's just replacing it, and it's actually removing some solid areas of concrete in the process. So it's improving, and it's not a pervious patio in its current situation. So it will actually be making that pervious. These gravel areas, this is really kind of wispy, sparse dune vegetation. But as you know, my rule of thumb is it's vegetated, you know, if it is got a density similar to what I would tell you we'd be planting, right? So it just barely would be something I would point to and say, yeah, we just planted that. It's not very dense, but it is being impacted. So we are providing these, you know, these planting areas. So I think in the end, we're not impacting dune function. And it sort of looks more complex than it is. It's relatively simple. And I think that a determination of a -3 maybe with condition that the, photographs of the planting areas upon completion be provided to the conservation agent is probably adequate to ensure that we have not adversely affected the floodplain or the dune on site.
Dan,
Yeah,
is-
you look at the numbers and it sort of seems like there could be more, mitigation.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to add, so we've got 44 square feet here, 87 and 32. So what's that, 32, 44, 76, and that's 80, 73, 153, and we're impacting 81. And over here, we're impacting 76. So 157, if I'm doing my, 54 we're impacting here and 76. So we're impacting 130. We could certainly bump up the planting areas by another 50 or 100 square feet. And again, that could be in a -3. You could condition that we just increase our planting areas by a reasonable number. I mean, I think we're already providing greater than 1-to-1. And I don't think that we're adversely affecting dune function, which is what the performance standard is.
All right, thanks, Tom. I think, other members may have similar questions, so thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Bob?
Actually, I have no questions. Excuse me, a very detailed plan, which I think adds to the confusion, but it appears it's just a swap for deck, and we're gaining permeable area versus impervious area. So it looks good to me.
Thank you, Bob. Diane?
No questions.
Great. TJ?
Tom, just the patio, that's around the same size or going to be much
Yeah.
bigger?
I mean, right now what's there is much more sort of old school rectangular. So
Yeah.
it's kind of adding some curves to it and everything.
Little
But
design, okay.
the square footage is not changing in any really meaningful way. And this commission typically in back dune environments has allowed, at times has allowed, pervious pavers to go in as long as it's not in an area where you have fast moving floodwaters. So it's consistent with what the commission has allowed elsewhere,
Yep, okay.
especially in that it's a replacement.
Good.
Thanks, TJ. Tom, was this I don't remember if this one had a wall or was it a different application that had a wall that was being removed?
No, well, so this is an existing wall. We're not touching
Okay.
the wall.
Yeah.
This is the basin back here.
Yeah.
And the wall runs along right here. And the shed is kind of right up a corner of it, almost on that wall.
Okay. Sam, anything else?
Not from me, and I don't see any hands or anything, so.
Okay, great. That being the case, is there someone who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we find a negative determination with Dan's comments incorporated.
So that's with is that with the condition for more plantings?
For an increase in the plantings.
Did you want to put a number on that planting? Because I heard 50 to 100 square foot mentioned.
I'd say we add 50 more square feet would be sufficient.
Great, thank you. This motion, is there a second?
Second,
Okay.
All right, discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion? Okay, then voting on the motion, Dan.
Yes,
Thank you, sir. Bob.
Yes.
Thank you, Diane.
Yes.
Thank you, TJ.
yes.
Great, and the chair's favor as well. Sam, do you need anything else from us with regards to this?
I'm all set.
Beautiful.
Thank
All right.
you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Continuing our agenda, we have Borrego Solar, Inc. 140R Main Street. DEP is unassigned. A notice of intent for a limited project to construct a road along an existing farm road with a wetland crossing for electric utility maintenance access to interconnection. And just for public knowledge base, the commission did do a site walk on, what date was that? Sam?
Oh, boy. The 7th,
It was a Tuesday, wasn't it?
Thursday.
Thursday. Okay.
Yes, it was the Thursday after the meeting, so it was the 7th.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. And who do we have?
Rob Rosine.
All right. The floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Robert Rosine with Waterstone Engineering on behalf of Borrego Solar. I guess first thing I'd like to ask is where would you like me to pick up? We spoke about this briefly in the prior meeting. Would you like me to pick up on this essentially to address questions from that were raised both during the site walk as well as the prior meeting, or would you like me to kind of rehash the overall project plan?
Well, I think the commission's had a kind of a view of the overall, so maybe from our questions that we had from our site walk, and then you can button up anything from there. How's that sound? Okay,
that sounds great. So what I'll do just briefly then is just summarize what I kind of believed the questions were from the site walk. And you'll all be happy to know that the site has now been mowed after the fact. Unfortunately, we did not have enough time to get the area cleared for you all. And I still owe you an apology from my dog shaking mud all over everybody. I'm appalled at that, I'm sorry. So I think that the large parts of the discussion during the site walk really revolved around both the direct impacts, trying to understand what the impacts of the resource areas will be, and then the range of alternatives that exist or do not exist, and really trying to bring the commission up to speed with where we stand on this from having exhausted a range of different options. I will say it seemed to me that the commission members all were sort of astounded at the need for this, and that it seems like a fairly crazy project in a lot of ways. And I think the simple fact of the matter is we don't disagree. It is just it's a requirement by National Grid for this, which seems a little absurd, but it is what it is. So we discussed a range of other options, direct access through under the existing interconnection lines, and why that wasn't was not an option because of the greater amount of impact that would exist from to wetlands there, even though it's a more direct access. But the current path is the location that has the least amount of wetland impact, even though it's not the most direct route. So with that, maybe I could share my screen with you briefly, if that's okay. I think there were let's do this one. There were the primary questions I think that came out were one question that came up was clarifying the amount of wetland impact of temporary versus permanent. I think I had mentioned prior that we were looking at about 400 feet of impact when clarifying that it really turns out to be about 470 square feet of temporary impact and about 120 square feet of permanent impact. You may recall that the difference being that we have to build a 20-foot temporary construction road that will be reduced down to a 12-foot permanent maintenance access road. The difference being the 20-foot temporary construction road is necessary for getting this fairly large crane in. So one of the requests that also came along with this was the need for a revegetation plan. So a revegetation plan has been developed. I realize you folks haven't had a chance to review it yet. I just submitted it today, but this is what we're looking at here. This is the project plan to the north, and so what we see here is the various wetland impacts, and we see the areas that are going to be that we have essentially 4 feet of either side of the road will be stripped. back down to grade and restored with loam and seed and replanted. So what we'll end up with is a 12-foot road that'll be approximately 4 inches above grade. So it won't be built up substantially. But so that's all. The restored areas will be on either side, running the full length of road. And then the other area of restoration will be the temporary crane pad and laydown area. It's about 6,000 square feet. This too will be restored down to a 12-foot road upon completion. The various restoration notes that go with this, including seed mixes, requirements for loam, requirements for mix composition. These are the prior mixes that we had used in the previous approval, I believe. I think this is the previous approval. I'm actually not 100. Yes, that's right. It's the Ernst Seed Mix 156. Is the prior seed mix that was approved for the facility outside of the fence lines. So this is the plan to the north, and then the same plan to the south, where we actually have the bridge crossing itself. The bridge isn't shown here, just the outline of it. So this is the area where the restoration will occur. This is approximately 135 feet long by 9 feet wide, 10 feet wide, that will be removed. And then bank restoration. So this is the stream bank restoration that will occur on either side. So that we have those questions. So maybe that's a good place to pause and see if you have any. Well, actually, before we do that, one this is fairly brief. The other part was just to there was a point was raised that we need to reflag that. So we have reflagging that will go out later this month for all the resource areas. And I believe the other part was cleaning up the wetlands plan. It had been noted that the wetlands plan was, some of the improvements were in the way of being able to clearly read the wetlands plan, and that has been cleaned up here. So, and there was one other fairly minor item, but it was a good point about winter plowing. That we've now added that there will be small posts that will be placed 2 feet off the edge of road to mark the low water crossing on either end for plowing, so that winter plowing won't stray into the wetland on either side. I believe that was it. I know there were lots and lots of other questions, but I think those were sort of the high points. So maybe I'll leave it at that and answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. We'll start with commissioners. Mary.
Thank you. Yeah, so obviously the wetland boundary, is not shown on the plan. We don't have wetland flags shown. So I'm sure DEP will comment on that when they will review and finally issue a file number for this. So we do need it all reflagged, because the flagging that was done is now dated much more than 3 years, which is the minimum, the maximum that's allowed. So you may need to recalculate your impacts based on the flagging. I don't know exactly like how you calculated the 470 square feet of wetland impact, if that's assuming that there's a cart path there or not assuming there's a cart path. The original delineation doesn't, the wetland line goes right across and doesn't show any upland right there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There it is.
Yeah. So there is upland. We actually do have wetland flags that travel across. So
those are the old
road
flags.
itself is not.
Yep. Okay. Got it. So obviously that'll be a concern. The seed mix that you're citing is not appropriate for wetland restoration. So you'll need a wetland seed mix. And also you most likely need to replace some shrubs and trees as well for the, in the temporary impact area.
Thank you for mentioning that. I actually wanted to mention that briefly, if you don't mind. the stream restoration notes. I think that was here. There, as far as one of the thoughts with respect to actual wetland plants, restoration of wetland plants, was in particular for this area, is that as this area is removed, actually this is not the right plan. I think it's, this is it. Sorry, one more. Is that we would be using the wetland plants that are removed as part of this the cart path removal. So any wetland vegetation that was removed here would be reused and repurposed for the stream bank restoration.
Yeah, and that it can be great if it doesn't have invasives in it, if there's no purple loosestrife in it, you know, so just make sure that that's not the
Okay.
case. It's nice to be able to do that, and you can use the sods essentially and to transfer,
Yeah.
but not if it has invasives in it, because that's what you'll end up with.
Okay.
And then, you know, just there's a difference between the permanent wetland replication that's needed for any permanent impacts and the temporary restoration that's needed for just obviously the temporary impact. So if there's cutting of shrubs and trees required to get access for equipment, then once you're restoring that roadway to the 12-foot width, you know, there may need to be some plantings along that roadway edge to restore that condition.
Okay.
And then I had a question about whether you're going to have any need for dewatering, and if so, where would that occur? For
Yeah, so it's expected that there will be a need. Yeah, exactly. It's expected that there will be a need for dewatering in this particular area, and the dewatering would occur outside of the resource area into a either into a pit or into an area that would be surrounded by hay bales and not hay bales, silt fence and the straw wattles.
Yeah, so we should just have a detail on the plan showing a dewatering pen or
you'd like to
silt
see the
bag.
dewatering locations identified?
Yeah,
Okay.
the location and the detail on the plan is typically required. Yeah.
Okay, you got it.
And then last comment had to do with whether or not you trigger a wildlife habitat evaluation for impacts to bank. So when you have it redelineated, you might want to ask your wetland consultant whether or not you're going to be triggering that at 50 feet or more linear feet of bank automatically triggers a wildlife habitat evaluation at those bank impact areas.
Okay. Now, I thought that the wildlife habitat evaluation that was done in the prior piece, that's been submitted as part of the NOI here, and it did not, and there was nothing identified in this area.
Not for rare species, but specifically, there's a structural habitat requirement for impacts to bank specifically.
Okay.
And Sam can direct you to those, or your wetland consultant can point those out as well.
Okay.
It looks like 20 feet on either side is your impacts. You may be below. We just need to confirm that is going to be less than 50 feet.
Okay.
And yeah, it's unfortunate you have to do this work. It's great that you're doing a bridge. I think that's, that definitely minimizes the overall impact associated with it. We do still have some concerns about the existing culvert that's under this causeway that's really not shown on this plan.
Yeah, it's shown on a prior plan. That's right. Yeah, this is the restoration plan we're looking at here.
Exactly. And I know you're talking about pulling that out, but I think some basic engineering calculations to determine what downstream impacts there would be from pulling out that culvert is something that should probably also be included in your narrative description.
And why is that? This to me is not acting as a dam. It's below a water level here. In a seasonal high. So I'm not sure I see this as being a, having the same need for culvert calculations as you would anticipate a normal road. Normal road would be above a high water line, so it'd act like a bridge in this
But I'm
case.
like,
So
yeah, it's hard to say because we're there in such a drought condition. So I'm not sure that's entirely the case, that it's not acting as a dam at all under normal conditions. I have to look at the details a little bit more closely on that issue.
I'm not actually even entirely sure what we would be looking at for this. Are you looking for, I mean, for example, there would, the type of calculations that we could do would be, like essentially a pipe flow analysis to see if there's backwater effects. And to do that, we'd have to come all the way down to the far end and look at the, examine the culvert outlet on the far end of the wetland that's as it passes underneath the interstate, and that was never really contemplated in any of the initial surveys or assessments or anything like that. And are you suggesting we need to characterize this whole large wetland system and the culvert under the interstate then?
Well, can you pull up the plan that shows the culvert?
Yeah. That would be, let's see. Let me go here. I think that's going to be here. Materials plan south. So that's going to be 9. No, actually, hold on. Let's see. It's going to be. No, it's not that. Here we go. This is the existing conditions here.
Yeah, so we don't have inverts shown on this, so it's really hard to tell what's happening, what the elevations are at the inlet of the granite box culvert or the 12-inch RCP, whether they're full free flowing or partially blocked. We don't really know what volume is being handled by those. Obviously the road overtops at some flood level. It's just I can't make any kind of a determination what will happen hydrologically with both of those things removed. Usually it's a good thing and you're opening it up. It's just you don't want to cause either downstream flooding impacts or draining of an upstream wetland that has been dependent on this restriction that's happening here. So there's not enough information to be able to evaluate that. Okay.
All right. I'm not entirely clear how we're going to evaluate that though. So I think I might need to come back to the commission to get some more clarification on that. I'm going to have to give that some thought, because it's for example, the granite box culvert. These things are they're kind of a box of rocks that are just piled on top of each other.
Yeah, well, having the inlet and outlet elevation shown on the plan is a good start for both of them.
I guess what I'm saying is
granite box
there's not
culvert,
really,
we don't know even what the size is of that box culvert. It may be very irregular, an old farm culvert kind of thing.
Very irregular, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are my comments for now. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. Dan, sir.
Yeah, I think probably just a question first, I guess. So the permanent road, when it's done, is it going to be the same elevation as what's there now?
I'm sorry. Let's see.
The roadway that you're proposing to the 12-foot or whatever it is,
right?
The final product.
Yes.
Going to basically be the same elevation as what's there now, or it's going to be higher?
Right. It'll be about 4 inches higher. The grade for the majority of the road will include an 8-inch cut, so the removal of the loam in the top area, and then the placement of about 12 inches of material over a bed of over a fabric. And so it'll leave a road that's not substantially elevated, about four inches above. There's some reshaping that will occur to get us around the corner here, and let me show that. That is under the okay. So here's the plan and profile for the northern portion, and you can see it for the most part it follows pretty much identically to what we have here.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a picture of how much you're going to have to remove a considerable amount of existing material. And in particular at that laydown area, I mean, that's a bad side hill there.
Yeah.
I just want to confirm all that excess material, even for the temporary disturbances, will go back to some stockpile area way back at the facility, right?
That's correct. Yeah. There will be, the laydown area itself will be used for stockpiling as much as there's room for, but there would be no stockpiling done outside of any of the laydown areas that are identified here.
Okay, and I presume those, particularly that crane laydown or the major laydown area right by the bridge, you've got something in there how they're protected and they're not going to, contribute to any sedimentation or anything, right?
That's correct. Yeah, there's perimeter erosion controls that should be around the entire area of disturbance, plus in particular around for the work that's potentially done in the wet or where the crossing removal would occur. Those will be behind turbidity curtains, and they're depending on the time of year, there will very likely be the need for dewatering to occur in that.
Okay. I mean, I think Mary already mentioned just that. To me, the biggest area of concern is that wide laydown area just north of the bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a lot of cut there, and a lot of trees going to be cut down. And, I think there'll be a need to try to replace some of those trees.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping Bob will bring up some of the ideas he was talking about to try to reduce the amount of temporary impact in this restoration of the crossing there with the bridge, underneath the bridge. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Bob, sir.
Thank you, Pete. Robert, can you put up a cross-section of the proposed 12-foot travel way showing from right to left? You're giving us the slope and grade, but as we walk this at our site walk, you're going to be cutting organic material on one side, but you have 3 to 5 feet of being out of level. So to maintain a roadway of 12 feet, you're going to be filling dramatically on one side and cutting a very minor cut on the other side. I mean, as you recall, members, as we are walking up this cartway, it wasn't level. And
I think the area you're referring to is this lower portion here.
There wasn't too many areas, Robert, that seemed to be really.
It's this area in here that you're referring to, probably. Yeah, really coming down to the lay area. We're on a fairly steep slope. As the majority of it is not. This is all fairly straightforward, as would be this. It's really when we begin to turn this corner in this location. I think, is that what you're referring to, Bob?
Yeah, well, I mean, what I'm thinking, I'd like to see stations at a certain interval showing from right to left what the elevations are with a proposed construction standard, because mean, as we know, if you're cutting 8 inches on one side and you're filling 3 feet on the other, that's going to expand your disturbed area, you know, by several feet. And I just want to make sure, Robert, you have a tremendous amount of equipment going to be going in and out of here. You're going to be having mobile refuelers. You've got equipment with a ton of hydraulic oil, where one hydraulic oil line break creates a large oil spill. And we're going to need a mitigation plan for some of those things. This is pretty much standard on a heavy construction site, and certainly that's what you're proposing here. So it's very difficult for me to look at this and fully ascertain what the finished travelway is going to look on a cross-section detail. I think that having stations at, whether it's at 50-foot intervals or 100-foot intervals, showing that the cross-section would give us a clear picture of the full impact and what's going to remain. I just want to get it all out now, Robert, rather than go back in here after you're all done and we're all shocked.
Okay.
So that's one question. I think it's important to have a schedule of heavy equipment, where it's going to be stored. You're in wetlands, you're working around wetlands. Is the crane and the hydraulic equipment going to be running on a petroleum-based hydraulic oil or a vegetable-based hydraulic oil? But at the very least, you're going to have to create a large oil spill mitigation plan. Problem is, anything over 6 gallons is considered a large oil spill. Any of us that have heavy equipment, one break in a hose, and you'd be thankful if you only had 6 gallons of hydraulic oil. So I'm just concerned about how this is going to be mobilized and demobilized, and then certainly what the final impact is going to be. 600-ton cranes, the tracks on them are typically 12 feet wide and up to 18 feet high. And that's just the cab on the tracks. It's an incredibly large piece of equipment. And then all the support equipment that you're going to be running, front end loaders and what have you, and other trucks and haulers. But I think at a minimum, it would be helpful to see a schedule of what equipment's going to be proposed, where it's going to be stored, what plan to prevent an oil spill or damage to the wetland based on this equipment, and what the mitigation plan would be if that happened. You're just in the thick of it here with wetlands.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think Mary's concern about doing the calcs on the culverts is a valid one. I know there's been concern in the neighborhood in the past of what impacts, if any, would have. It appears that it would probably improve everything, but I think the math will tell us that accordingly. And at the end of the day, wrapping this all up, there's going to have to be some sort of a performance bond, so that what is proposed, what the finished product is, that we have the ability with some teeth in it to get it done in a fashion.
Sure, which makes perfect sense. Yep.
Yeah. None of this, honestly, none of this is unusual for a construction site in a wetland area like this, Robert. It's unfortunate that you have to do this in this fashion. I think we're all in agreement on that, but those are my comments for now.
Okay.
I don't want to take any more time up.
Thank you. I do have one question again about the hydraulics piece. You know, if there's a real concern about that, I mean, one thing is you could build the bridge and leave the road. I mean, the only point of the building, removing the road, removing the cart path was because it was believed to be a positive element. Right. If there is in fact concern about the removal of it because of the hydraulics and the fact that it's disturbed wetlands, we could leave the cart path and just have, and then we would be left with the 120 square feet of permanent impact from the first crossing, and not alter any of this. It would certainly be easier from a construction standpoint to not remove it. I mean, is there is there a belief amongst the commission that that would be a preferred approach?
I think the calculations would determine that for me at least. Robert, there was one other thing I wanted to add, and Dan had reminded me of it. Right now, you're proposing putting crushed stone and cribs every 30 feet to support the 30-foot spans of your bridge. Just as a note, we had talked about in the field of just driving temporary pilings on each side that could be easily installed, easily removed, and probably more cost effective. That was just one of the notes we had made out in the field.
Oh, yes, thank you. I remember that.
That was more of a suggestion, certainly.
Yeah.
But it seemed it would have the least amount of impact on the resource. But
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Diane.
I just have one. Rob, at the beginning, you were talking about having the 20-foot road being the temporary road that's going to be reduced down to 12. And I recall we had talked about the fact that NGrid had required some 20-foot turnarounds or bump outs in the road. And I
That's
see
correct.
that
Yeah.
you have those like before and after the bridge. And I see the one that's up on the screen now. Are there more that are going to be placed every like few feet, or is that it?
No, we have two. We have three. We have one on either side of the crossing, and then we have a third, which is down in this vicinity, which I believe that's what this is. Yeah, this area that is which is overlapping with the laydown area. So we have a slight widening here that will be used as a bump out in the lower portion.
And then there was a bump out up in the other, if you go back on the road there was the 20-foot bump out up the top. So there's 4.
1, 2, yeah, that's right. And then there's the last one on the south side of the bridge here.
So they're all around the bridges. They don't go the entire length of the road.
No, they do go the full length of the road. So we have this here. We have the area of interconnection, which has, I can't remember, but it's approximately 18 feet, I believe, on either side. That's what NGrid requires. And then, so we have this turnout on this side of the bridge. And then there are, as we progress forward. So if that would have been, let's call that 1 and 2. So 1 would be at the interconnection area. 2 would be on the south side of the bridge. 3 would be not really at the bridge, but on the corner. And then 4 would be a bit past the corner still. And then 5 would be basically right near, just across the low water crossing here.
Okay, so there'd be permanent 20-foot bump outs.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's as I said, and that's a requirement of NGrid. It initially pushed us for a 20-foot road, which, as we all know, there's a 12-foot access road to get into the facility with no bump outs. But this was their compromise.
That's all I had.
Yeah.
Thanks, Diane. TJ?
Yes. Hey, Rob. First, let me just say it was very helpful doing the walk around on the property with you, especially not having seen it before. I know we had talked about, Bob had brought up those construction alternatives to maybe think of, but Mary had a question about the helicopter bringing some in, and you were going to look at that too. Did you ever get any kind of?
I don't have a response on that, but I have raised the issue on that, and so I have the issue out, the question out to the contractor, both about that as well as the helical piles, and the idea of a helicopter is an interesting one, and it's really, God, it would be phenomenal. But the general thought on that one is that, well, first of all, it's not an easy one to get to evaluate. So we're taking a little time to look into that one. But the other one is that just what one issue that was raised is that NGrid would not be very happy about having a helicopter so close to the transmission corridor, and we haven't broached that topic with NGrid yet, but You know, because what would be so much easier is if we could actually just bring the crane in underneath the transmission corridor.
Oh, exactly.
But it's just, they won't let us do it. It's, so I mean, we're just left with this monster of having, you know, it's not even it. It's, here we go. Here's our transmission corridor in this lower region here. It is a fairly long ride. I believe it's about a mile, but it would be manageable. But the issue seems to be off the table. So, sorry, TJ, I'm rambling a little bit. To answer your question, both those we're looking into.
Okay.
That it's Jay?
Yep.
Great. Rob, I want to thank you for enduring the past 35 minutes of questions from the commission members. I think you have a lot of things to look at. Before I make any more comments, I want to see, Sam, do you have anything you want to jump in now with?
Not anything that I can think of. Everybody's been pretty thorough with their questions, and I think actually Bob especially came up with quite a few interesting ones that I hadn't thought to consider before, with the hazardous waste or hazardous spill potential.
A couple things, Rob. When we were winding down the sidewalk, we had crossed over the area where the stage area would be for the bridge, I guess would be the north end of the bridge. And you said, oh, I want to make sure that people know about this. And it was something, and the commission members weren't able to see.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Let's go to 11 for that. Yes. So one of the questions to determine is let's go here. Sorry. Is this, which is the idea of so we have listed here a wetland creation area. So that this would be a replacement for the impact associated with the prior crossing, or any permanent impacts here, which I think that point is still really to be determined, whether this would be considered a permanent impact or a restoration, the removal of the cart path itself. But but regardless, if there is the need for wetland creation, my thought was that we and certainly this is up to the determination of the board, but that the idea of having to do wetland creation in this location, or anywhere really in this area, to me would be appears to be unnecessary disturbance. There's mature shrubs and trees in these areas, you know, essentially everywhere, and there's no easy place to do a wetland creation. So we have in the NOI, what we're doing is actually we have it listed as an optional piece with the intention or the hope that it will be that you would agree with the idea that the 1,400 or nearly 1,500 square feet of wetland restoration that occurs for the cart path removal would be sufficient to make this piece unnecessary. Because while this is clearly an impact or a man-made structure and a low-quality wetland crossing, this is a mature shrubland and upland area and I think that's the point of discussion that the board will want to have for that.
Okay, thanks. And then you raised a question as to whether the board would want a road versus a path, and I'm not sure that the board should be directing that. I think if National Grid is indicating they're going to need X, Y, Z for their equipment, I think then you would have to say to the commission, this is what we need, and let us know once you have that defined. Rather than
no, I actually didn't mean that, Pete. I'm
okay.
Sorry. What I meant was not that we would put a road through here, that we would just build the road without removing build the bridge wethout removing the cart path. No, because to build a road would be at a tremendous amount of impact. That we would be up probably over 10,000 square feet of wetland impact for that.
Okay, very good.
So all I meant was rather than the cart path removal, that we could just build the bridge and leave the cart path.
Okay, I don't have anything else. I think the commission members have brought a lot of very good points for you to bring back. Let's see, Sam, is there anyone from the public that would like to ask any questions at this time in the hearing?
I do not see any raised hands.
So
And
if there are-
I don't see anyone's videos looking like they want to say anything.
Okay, all right. That being the case, I think it's appropriate to continue this. And I might suggest that we look toward the second meeting in August, just to give the applicant some time to really work these things through, because there have been a number of things of significance that were brought. If there's no additional conversation on this, I'd entertain a
Just
motion.
one other item, Pete. Just in the course of the resurveying of the wetland flags, if they can get some spot elevations upstream and downstream of that cart path, that's proposed to be removed, the old farm road, that would be helpful, as well as the inverts of both culverts.
Okay, very good. You got that, Rob?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, that being the case, I would entertain a motion for continuance.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I just would like clarification on when you would like this moved to.
Yeah, I would say, oh boy.
So the second meeting in August is going to be on the 16th. The meeting on the 30th is a special meeting. We're not doing any hearings. And then in September, we're only having one meeting. The original first meeting that we were going to have in September was going to be on the 6th, but that's a state election day. So we're only going to have one meeting on the 20th in September, just so everybody is aware.
So 8/16 or 9/20 are the options, is what I'm hearing you say? Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Do you think you need more time than less, Rob, realistically?
I think possibly for the hydraulics study. Because I'm not sure when we'll be able to get a survey out as part of that.
Okay, well then let's.
You know what I'd like to do? I think I'd like to do the 16th, if you don't mind, and I will get back to you if there's a need for a change on that.
You need the survey anyway to locate the wetland flags.
Okay, so the request is, and for the 16th, there's a 16th of August, there's a motion to made as such. As that being the case, any discussion on the motion?
No.
Okay, then I'll call the question. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Dan?
Yes.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
Thanks, Diane.
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
And the chair's in favor as well. Thanks very much. Rob, we'll see you on the 16th of August.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you. Continuing on our agenda will be Nathan Ray, 21 Cottage Road. DEP is unassigned a notice of intent for work to replace the existing septic system. Sam, where are we with this?
We do have Nathan here. I do just want to say I've reached out to Jim Freely, and I know a couple other people have reached out to Jim Freely. And I want to apologize to Nathan. I really am very sorry. I have no idea what's going on with this. I'm going to reach out to Jim again tomorrow. And I never heard back from him anytime that I've reached out to him about where the file number is for this. The fee has cleared. As far as I'm aware, there shouldn't be any issues that DEP should have with this one. I have a feeling it probably got put in a pile and other stuff has been piling up around it. So I am going to reach out to Jim again tomorrow and try to push him a little bit again for the file number.
So basically, Sam,
Right.
we're kind of in limbo. We can't close this until we get our DEP number.
Correct, but this is one of the projects that had to get re-advertised because of the
Okay.
quorum issue.
Okay,
So since Nathan is here, so that we don't waste his time now that he's been here for an hour and a half, if we want to let him go through the whole thing again, just to bring the new members up to speed, so that hopefully in August, we can close this one out. I think that might be helpful.
Beautiful. Thanks, and Nathan, it's all yours.
All right, just simply trying to replace the septic system where a Title V has um, been inspected and it's failed. So we're trying to put in a new septic system. It's for 21 Cottage Road, and we have plans already turned in, as well as a contractor lined up, ready to go. And that's pretty much it. It's just simple, replacing the existing septic system in a better location, higher elevation. It was failed because of the water table. So we've engineered and designed a Presby system that would fit in the best suitable place for the small lot that we possibly could. That's really all I have.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. Sam, do you want to just help out the new commission members?
Yeah, so this one, like Nathan said, there's really not much space for this to go. Pretty much the entire house is all, you guys can see the screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
So as you can see, there's, wetland flags surrounding the house pretty much. If any of you are familiar with Cottage Road, it's wet. The whole thing is wet. So the buffer line is right here, or 50-foot wetland setback is here. So it's mostly just outside of the 50-foot. I don't believe there were any issues with this one to begin with the first time it came through. Everything is pretty straightforward. I believe this has been signed off on by the Board of Health. So they are all set with the design aspect of it. And I think that's pretty much all I got.
Okay. I'll just run down the previous board members to see if there's anything that they want to comment on. Mary?
I would just add that we need to show erosion control. I don't think they're shown on this plan, but somewhere between the wetland boundary and the limit of work.
It's on there, Mary.
Is it? I'm missing it. I can't see it.
Right
Oh,
from the
proposed erosion control right there. Okay, great. No comments then.
Beautiful, thanks. Hey, Dan, anything?
No, I just, I think for the new members, I think, if it's outside of 50 feet, we don't really have too much to say except for construction impacts. I mean, the system itself is out of our jurisdiction, and it looks like the most appropriate one that I think you could, best solution you could come up with, so.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Bob?
It looks good to me, Pete. Thank you.
Okay, great. Diane, any questions?
Thank you, Dan. No, thanks for Dan's input, and no, I don't have any questions.
Beautiful. TJ?
No questions on the plan. In a case where we're just waiting for the DEP number, is it not permissible to approve this plan contingent upon getting a DEP number, or just wait for it?
We have to
He
wait for
doesn't
the.
like
Have to wait for it.
Right.
Oh yeah, I've tried to go there before as well.
And there could be conditions that come back or recommendations, TJ, with the number, which
Yep.
adds
Very
to the
good.
mix.
Appreciate it though.
Is that shed in the wetland still there, or is that the one that's been removed?
Yeah, for the best of
That's
my knowledge, it's there. Yeah, it was originally.
That was a
thinking about
pre-existing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pre-existing. Yeah. Yep, it's still there. That's fine. Haven't been to the property for some time.
All right. Do we have anyone from the public, Sam?
We do have, Marty Patassi does have his hand up. I don't know if Marty, if you intended to put your hand up or if that was an accident. But if you're saying anything, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Are you going to get to my case today?
we are, yes.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
You're 2 away, Marty. We're getting there.
Well, let's see, it's 8:30. You guys gonna go past 9?
we're going to try to get through as quickly as we can.
Okay,
Very
thank
good.
you.
Great. All right.
Don't
So
see
let's look.
anybody else.
Beautiful. Let's look for a continuance date then. Do we want to continue this to the 16th to give enough time for DEP to get their stuff together?
I would ask to go as soon as possible, and if there's not,
Yeah,
Okay.
I would go with the
Just in
second.
case.
That way, if it does
Okay.
come in sooner, we don't have to wait around for it.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be done by the second.
All right. Very
and then
good.
I wouldn't have to come to that meeting if I don't have the number right, we'll know ahead of time.
No, yeah, we can, if the number hasn't been assigned yet, we'll just continue it
For the next one.
until, the next time.
Appreciate that.
Very good. Entertain a motion to continue this to the 2nd of August.
Move to continue to the 2nd of August.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Great. Any discussion on the motion? I don't see any.
No.
Okay. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Dan, how do you vote?
Yes,
Thanks, Bob. How do you vote?
Yes.
Thanks, Diane. How do you vote?
yes.
Thanks, TJ.
Yes.
Great. Chairs in favor as well. Hopefully, Nate, we will have that DEP number for you by then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Continuing on our agenda, support the Pink House Inc., 60 Plum Island Turnpike, DEP 050-1382, a notice of intent to, for work to conduct maintenance renovations of the rear of the side of the existing single-family residential structure. And who do we have here?
Good evening. My name is George Hall. I'm an attorney from Anderson and Krieger representing Support the Pink House. I hope I've chosen the right microphone so you can all hear me okay.
You're good, George.
We were here in June and I think this is a rerun because of the quorum issue. So I'll just kind of take it from the top. This is a site at 60 Plum Island Turnpike on the south side of the turnpike beyond the airport. Was acquired with about 3.5 acres of land by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in 2011. There were some noises made by Fish and Wildlife about repurposing or doing something with the house, but at some point, due to lack of funding or ideas about how to make that work, there was some talk about demolishing the house. And Support the Pink House is a local group that organized eventually as a 501c3 organization and reached an agreement with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to acquire the house for the purpose of restoring it and returning it to a permitted use, which in this zone would be either a single family use or some kind of educational use. And I think single family use is the way we're going here. We have obtained a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals to carve out just the minimum area of land to form a lawful building lot. From an area and frontage standpoint, the variance was required because the entirety of the site is in the area of critical environmental concern and within the 100-year floodplain, which are also obviously relevant to this discussion. We have also been working with the Newbury Historic Commission and with Town Council and the Massachusetts Historic Commission to develop, draft, and get approval of a historic preservation restriction that would require that the exterior of the house, once fixed up to its original glory, remains maintained the same way. There are some shed additions in the back of the house that are in very poor condition. And there are some photos of that in the narrative that I've submitted with a notice of intent. And the purpose of this notice is to obtain an order of conditions to demolish those 3 additions, replace them with one of approximately the same size, but with a slightly different configuration. The site, as I've mentioned, is located, the house is basically on about 20,000 square feet of uplands surrounded by the salt marsh. It is entirely within the area of critical environmental concern and entirely within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The wetlands were flagged, I think in March of 2021 by Bill Manuel. I believe there's been a site visit in June where some members of the commission had an opportunity to review those flags. The additions that will be removed currently come to within about 14 feet and 18.5 feet respectively of the salt marsh line. The addition will slightly increase that setback on one corner and slightly decrease it on another. But that's the area where the driveway used to wrap around the back of the house. And that will be allowed to continue to go back to its natural state. I mentioned in the notice of intent it would be removed and replaced. Apparently it's largely removed itself. So the project also will involve just bringing in fresh gravel on to restore part of the gravel driveway, but the area behind the house will be left as it is, and instead there'll be a turnaround placed in front of the house, projecting away from the wetland area. The project was reviewed by Natural Heritage, which sent out a letter on June 7th indicating no adverse impact in terms of the Wetlands Protection Act performance standards and no take under the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. We did receive a file number the day after the June hearing. So the last question has to do with the elevation of the addition. We are not proposing to raise the floor elevation of the addition to the 100-year flood elevation. The applicable standards here are both in Appendix G to the building code and in the Newbury Wetland Bylaw, which essentially adopts the requirements of Appendix G, both exempt from the discussion, the definition of substantial improvement, rehabilitation or repairs, restoration of historic structures. I am aware this is not currently designated as a historic structure. However, the variance that was issued by the ZBA requires that the property be restored in connection with the historic preservation restriction that we have worked out already with the Newbury Historic Commission. Since our meeting with you in June, Michael Steinitz at the Mass Historical Commission has approved the draft with certain revisions that he has requested. And we expect that once, sometime over the next couple of weeks, we will have that finalized and signature ready. We think it would be perfectly appropriate for an order of conditions to be conditioned on the recording of a preservation restriction designating this as a historic structure, so that you can find that it is in compliance with the wetland bylaw standards for restoration. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Sam, do you want to toss anything else in on that?
I don't think so for this one. I know there were a few questions and stuff that got raised during the hearings and during the site walk. That I think Mary had a lot of them.
Okay. Well, let me start there then. Mary?
Thanks. So yeah, I had no issues with the wetland delineation. And it's good that we've got natural heritage. I had a question about whether or not the bylaw applies to this, since it's not on Plum Island. Can you clarify that for me, Sam?
I don't believe it does. My understanding was that anything on the seaward side of the bridge is what the bylaw applies to. Where this is on the landward side of the bridge, I don't believe it does.
Is that your understanding, Dan?
Yeah, I think it's Barrier Beach only.
Right, okay. Yeah, so it's in terms of complying with the bylaw, I guess that is a non-issue. And elevating the structure, since we have no performance standards for land, septic, coastal storm flowage under state rules, it's really a building code decision. This particular location is not going to change or increase flooding or risk of storm damage to adjacent properties because it's sort of all by itself over there. So my only concern is maintaining a permanent buffer zone to the marsh from the activities associated with the occupation of the house. And we didn't project the plan during this discussion, but some sort of a fence or something behind the patio, between the patio and the wetland, I think would be appropriate to minimize the potential for somebody wanting to clear out that brush to improve the view. Basically, that vegetation there is important. It's an important buffer to the wetland beyond there. Yes.
Harry, I assume you'd want
Maybe
something
like a
fairly
split rail
low
fence.
impact there.
Yeah, a split rail fence or something that would just delineate the back of the yard, you know, that to prevent somebody from wanting to clear vegetation right up to the wetland edge in the future, because it's obviously it's a very sensitive area. And the other point was just that there is some perennial pepperweed in the wetland right behind where the patio is proposed, and I think any order of conditions that we would issue, I think it would be appropriate to recommend that be managed and pulled to prevent it spreading into other areas of the marsh. And we
I
could
think we can
develop,
live with that.
provide some protocol, or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has protocol for that as well. Those are my only comments. But yeah, I think some sort of a fence, boulder rock wall, or some kind of delineation along that.
Mary?
edge there. Sure.
This is Steve Sawyer. I did the plan for that. We'd be fine with conditioning a split rail fence.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Should we identify like from flag to flag, like?
I can't hear.
We could, yeah, we could specify, that it.
Like A17 to 23, just wrapping around the back.
23 and we're 17.
17, I think, is right there.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I think that, where it ties into the driveway, might even to 16 or something, so that it's clear where the,
Okay.
when you're driving in, that you're not driving into the wetland there. You're staying on the driveway area. 16 to 23. And also a question for George. I'm assuming since this is single family home, we're not triggering NEPA for this, though it's an ACEC. Is that correct?
I think that's right.
You don't need any other state permits for it. Is that right?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary. Dan?
So just to follow up on the fence discussion, I think what you were talking about was basically following the erosion control line there. Is that pretty much what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that might be a way to better define what you're talking, what's.
That's,
what
yeah, that would be great. Yes, between A23 and A16 along the erosion control line. Mhm.
Okay.
I'm being advised that the preservation restriction actually specifies no additional accessory structures, no fencing, no, we actually had to get this particular addition approved in the preservation restriction. So I'm not sure that that's impossible to address, but as it currently stands, they do not want any other structural additions to this property.
Well, it could be done through landscaping or
Some sort of
stones.
monumentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Dan, did you have any other comments?
Yeah, I had just another question. Sam, do you have the ability to show the sectional view of the house?
This one?
Yeah. So the only suggestion I would make is in terms of trying to keep as much free space underneath this floor in that, new structure, part of the addition there, is it, if possible, just flush frame that floor so there's no additional thickness of that floor. And if, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. Maybe that's already the case. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Bob?
Yeah, let me just make sure I'm not on mute. Okay, I'm not. The question for Sam. Sam, were there any DEP comments when the file number was issued?
No, I just looked it up.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. No, this looks good to me. It'd be great to see this landmark restored. I do have one question though. It's not in our wetland bylaw, and CMR 310 doesn't really get into construction standards beyond what the state building code or coastal construction standards are. So do we even have the ability or the authority to start dictating, fences or other structures like that beyond what the Wetland Protection Act says and what our own bylaw says? Certainly temporary erosion control, but it just seems that we may be delving into some other areas that are really beyond our scope. But I'm fine with it. Looks good.
It's buffer zone to salt marsh, so that's why I was suggesting that.
Yeah, no, when the state building code was adopted in 1972, it was set up so that no other political subdivisions of the Commonwealth could compete with it. Time to time, DEP will go into the BBRS and request a modification to the state building code, but independently adding building standards or things beyond that really do compete with the state building code. Now, some of these are good ideas and maybe should be incorporated in the building code or in the Wetland Protection Act, but I just get concerned when we don't get into areas beyond really what our jurisdiction is. Thank you.
Well, I would just say to that, Bob, that I think Appendix G was the product of a lot of negotiation and collaboration between CZM, DEP, BBRS, and was meant to kind of unify in one place the agreed standards for elevation of buildings. I take Mary's point, however, that some kind of demarcation of the edge of wetland doesn't really relate to the building standards and is something that the commission could do. And we don't have a problem with monumenting that edge.
All right. Anything else, Bob?
No, I'm all set. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks. Diane?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. TJ?
Is there plumbing out to the building now existing?
Yes.
Very good question.
Yes.
And is
it's already
any of
connected.
that being altered or upgraded or maintained?
There'll be
believe
no
only when
no
it
need
gets
for
in-
it. There's already a water and sewer service into the existing basement with no need for upgrade.
Okay. And what's the final use of the building going to be? I agree, it's going to be nice to have it fixed up and, it's kind of a
We will-
landmark.
It will be restored, and then we will be looking for a loving owner to live there.
Okay.
Wonderful. I don't have any additional questions. Sam, is there anyone from the audience, the public, that would like to ask any questions or make any comments?
Don't see any hands going up. Rochelle, I know your hand was up for a little bit. Did your comments or questions get addressed?
I think so. It was just about the back fencing, and George spoke to that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. That being the case, I would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
There's a motion made. Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Great. Dan?
yes.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
Thanks, Diane.
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
Great. And chairs in favor as well. Okay.
Thank you all very much.
And we can discuss any special conditions or what our disposition is for this project, either now or at the end of the meeting, or how would you like to handle that?
How's about now's a good time?
Okay.
Special
So I guess
condition? Yes.
I would make a motion to issue an order of conditions permitting this project with special conditions that would include demarcation of the permanent demarcation of the erosion control boundary as shown on the approved plan from flag 16 to 23, or I think it's A16 to A23. And then and something perhaps restricting any cutting of vegetation beyond the limit of work shown without further approval from the commission, since the entire area is within jurisdiction.
I think that's already a standard condition. Yeah,
anyway.
is that any additional vegetation removal outside of what was approved without additional permission from the commission. Is not
Yeah, I
allowed.
think it might be worth making it a special condition in this case as well, because the entire property it may not be clear what's allowed to be cut and what's not from the standard condition.
Okay. There's a motion and with some conditions. There's a second.
Second,
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? I don't see any. Okay, we're going to do reverse order. TJ, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Great. Diane?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
yes.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
Great. Chairs in favor as well. Thanks very much. All right, moving on to our next item on the agenda. Martin Passe at 42 Middle Road, P0501384, a notice of intent to work to construct a single-family home with septic system and wetland crossings for driveway installation. Work will include restoration and mitigation. Who is here to speak on this?
Good evening, Commission. Devin Morse here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Patassi from Hancock Associates. I am stepping in this evening for our project team, which included Kristen Farr, one of our staff scientists, and Charles Weir, project engineer and division manager for Hancock Associates. So this was a project that was submitted back in March. So we are in front of the commission due, again, as some of the previous other projects have already noted, because of the quorum issue. So I kind of just want to run through it for everyone. And if I miss anything, I apologize. And I hope that Sam and the other commission members who have been present to the previous presentations, site visits, etc., can help me out a little bit. So thank you, Sam, for pulling up that plan. As Mr. Chairman just explained, this project is in request to permit construction of a single-family home within buffer zone. Wetland resource areas on the property include bordering vegetated wetlands, inland bank, and the associated 100-foot buffer zone to that. The property right now in the back is currently undeveloped, but so what the plan is to do here, it's one parcel to be subdivided via Form A process with the planning board. And we'd like to leave, if we could zoom in a little bit, that would be super
Yeah,
helpful.
for some reason, my computer does not like this plan. I had so many issues with it earlier today.
Okay.
It has a hard time loading it. I don't know if it's just because there's a lot of stuff on it.
Sure. Do you want me to pull it up on mine?
If you can, yeah, you
Okay.
should be able to do screen sharing.
Okay.
I don't know why it doesn't like it.
No worries. And I just want to make sure I have the right one. This is from June 15th, 2022, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing. Great. So I actually marked this up real quick just to kind of show you, show the commission and those who have not seen this plan, what the property line is right now in order to subdivide. So this is Mr. Patassi's house, his existing septic. And so this is all staying as is, right? The goal of the proposed work is to construct a driveway, and in order to do so, to get to a proposed single family home with a dry well, septic, etc. up here. But in order to do that, we need to cross and fill 1,587 square feet of wetland. So we are mitigating that a little bit above that 1-to-1 ratio. I believe it's 1,605 square feet. And I know during the public hearing process prior to this opening hearing here, Mary Rimmer had some comments in regards to the wetland line, which was originally delineated by Seacamp Environmental. Due to unfortunate circumstances, Seacamp is not part of this project anymore. And so Hancock kind of took that back over and went out with Sam. And actually, I was privy to this. I went out with Sam and our staff scientists. And we had a couple of revisions, and we updated the replication plan. I don't know why this plan keeps doing that. That's weird. To kind of encapsulate and streamline this area here where my cursor is. So this area here is pretty, it fits in with what the existing body of the wetland complex is now. And just so everyone can see it a little bit more, I'll zoom in. There is an intermittent stream to where we would need to remove an existing wood bridge that's out there, and then we'd put in a culvert. And so I have that detail right here, and then I'll go to the second page. Hopefully that doesn't give me any issues. Okay, so this is our crossing detail here, where we're gonna have, I believe, so it looks like the existing grade is at 9, and we'll have that pavement gravel substrate above the arch of the culvert. So I will go back. And so when we were out on site to do our site visit, to revise flagging, look at the flagging, etc., we did note that there was a perennial stream to the northeast, I believe. Where's my north arrow? Up here, if you can see where my cursor is. And so we were sure to add the 200-foot riverfront area to that said perennial stream onto the plan. And as you can see, we are not within riverfront area, more so just within that limit of the 100-foot buffer zone to the BBW, and then obviously including the replication for wetland impact. So I think that's everything. If anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. this is, has been ongoing for some time. So we are looking for hopefully closing the public hearing this evening and getting an issuance for an order of conditions. But again, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Devin. Sam, do you want to start off?
Yep. So seems like Devin kind of covered most of it. One quick question for you, and I don't know if I just missed you saying it. Did you add on the area off Highfield Road that was not on the property, or is that what's up on the top?
Are you talking about the stream, or are you talking about the wetland flagging up here? Is that where
yeah, it must be the wetland flagging up at the top. I remember when we were redoing the flagging, that there was the part that kind of went off the property.
Yeah.
And I think we had said that you were gonna go based off of like the Mass GIS.
Correct. Yep. So that should be up here where that stream is off property, because we were not, that's a private property, and we didn't want to trespass. So yes, so that was taken from Mass GIS.
All right. And I think that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, great. Mary, do you want to start us off?
You're on mute, Mary.
Thanks. I was just checking the DEP if they had any comments. So first off, Dan and Pete and I have had a chance to walk the site. And I know some of the new members have not and are not familiar with it. So there may be some interest in taking a look at it. This is, a new house with a significant amount of wetland impact to access it. The questions have to do with the crossing area and whether the crossing meets the state stream crossing standards. And I wonder if Devin could answer that for us.
Well, I would sure hope so, Mary. I haven't been a part of this project in regards to that. I can, if that's an engineering question in regards to stream crossing, or if I can get back to you in regards to that question, I will. But to my knowledge, that is what the design is based off of. So those guidelines should be set forth and be in compliance with.
Yeah, I mean, there's an openness ratio that's required and a 1.2 times the bank full width. It's unclear what the bottom, the bottom substrate, if you're going to be creating a new bottom substrate or just using what material that's there. So I'm not entirely clear on that. And also, if you could, do you have any detail of the cross section of the road itself, the driveway itself, so we know what the side slopes are or what how that's going to be treated?
Sure, let's see. We've got the crossing, driveway detail up here. Okay, we've got the 15-foot wide pavement up at the top here with compacted gravel substrate for the driveway detail. But I don't see anything else in regards to.
I just don't know how the sides are stabilized is what it doesn't really show on this.
Yeah.
How you're handling that. Because you're going to have some slope, and whether that slope is going to impact more wetland than is shown is a little bit unclear from this plan. So those are my main comments, is this, this how you meet stream crossing. I don't know what, I have not had a chance to look at a replication plan, so I don't know what you're proposing in terms of plantings and
plant species. Yep.
Right. And what your replication sequence is. Has that all been submitted, Sam? Is that something you've looked at?
I believe let's see, we have our wetland replication notes, which our
on the plan right there.
Yeah, so our PWS, who you may know, David Cowell, actually designed this.
Okay.
So he has, looks like 10 high bush blueberry. I don't know if you can see this in front of you here.
Yes, yep,
Yeah.
since we put, those are appropriate plantings, that's fine.
Yep.
It looks like they went through the process. 1-to-1, I think it's 1.1-to-1 replication is what you're proposing.
Yes, correct.
And DEP typically requires 1.5-to-1. So it's pretty skimpy. It has to be 100% successful or pretty nearly 100% successful to meet the get a certificate of compliance in the end, to show that
Oh,
you're
I
adequately
believe it's
replicated.
I believe it's what you I believe it's 1-to-1. Do you have that language or verbiage that I possibly could take and read at a later time?
It's 1-to-1 is the absolute minimum typically.
Okay. Okay.
Reviewing, yes, it's current policy anyway to require at least 1.5-to-1. So I'm saying that we're really on the skimpy side of the mitigation end of things with 1.1-to-1. So
sure,
there's an area, and there's also was a concern about replication in that particular area because there's quite a lot of ledge. So getting that, because this replication area doesn't show the grading that's proposed in order to, what the final grades are. So you're going to have a little bit of trouble getting to grade and having adequate organic cover on top in that particular area. So I don't know if you've done any test logs or anything that would support the location of the replication.
That I'm
area
not too
there.
sure of, but that is something that I can find out in regards to test pits. Now, I guess kind of noting on that, Mary, is where would be the most feasible location to do said wetland replication? I mean, up in here, you have a pretty vegetated forest that I don't see would be great to disturb.
Yep.
I mean, here does kind of more or less make sense because of the existing conditions of the wetland, but I do see I see in regards to grading.
I just remember at the site visit, you had really shallow ledge right there.
Yeah.
So I'm just concerned that you might not be able to actually get it in there in the square footage that you need to get your 1.1-to-1. So there might be an alternative location. It might be along the wetland line closer to the crossing area.
Like in here or in here
to the right of your, the limit of your grading.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
can't see this. Yeah, I mean, either way, you're going to have to clear trees to do replication. Unfortunately, it has some impact when you do that.
Mary, I was wondering if
there might be something along the street that you could also do. Did somebody say something?
Yeah, this is, I just got out of my meeting. This is Charlie Ware.
Oh, hi, Charlie.
So, how you doing? Yeah, Mary, one of the things we did do was when you had brought up at the sidewalk, the area that we had chosen, we did pull that down where there was some shallow ledge. We had poked an auger in that area. We looked at, the ability, because as you got up into that slope, we did hit ledge. So we actually, if you compare it with the earlier sketch, we actually pulled the replication area down and pulled it down closer to the wetlands. And that's why it's actually why we show, this an elongation of the area as well. Okay. So we did that. And then I heard the other question about the off grading, and we're proposing a wall along either side for all of the crossing. And then what in the other areas, the reason why this really, we do show the grading, the existing driveway is very, very close to the existing surface. So there really isn't any off grading once you get beyond the wall. And we've put the wall on either side to to minimize the impact to the wetlands.
Is it a block wall? Like,
Yes,
yeah, I
it's
can't
a
see on the
concrete
screen.
block wall. That's correct.
I apologize. This PDF is not liking my computer either, but yeah, that is on there.
And Charlie, can you address the stream crossing standards for the culvert?
Yeah, we were not going to touch the bottom of the, we were going to traverse the stream, and then we were going to leave the matrix that's there now and not change it. We do meet the openness coefficient as well, if those are the two things you're talking about.
Yeah, the 1.2 times bank full width and the 80% openness. And is there something in the filing that documents that you're meeting that?
I believe there is, but I wouldn't be able to put my hands on it. That's sure.
Yeah.
Sam, do you have any?
See, let me pull up the.
Thank you, Charlie, for answering those questions.
And while Sam's looking that up, and just one more question, and I'll pass it on to other members, I'm sorry, is just how do you get access to the replication area without further impacting, causing further disturbance? I mean, that you're going to have to clear to get access to that area all the way along that whole wetland edge. So it's kind of a lot of impact for that width there.
Yeah, we would have to use a small
bobcat.
Yeah.
And I guess I still would like to see some sort of a grading plan for the replication.
That's fine. It's such a minor amount of regrading that we only need to scrape away probably 6 inches of soil. We pulled it down to the point that we didn't really need to do much grading. But we could certainly show a profile through that section to clarify that.
Mm-hmm. That's all I have. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Mary. Dan?
So it's not really clear to me looking at this, what is retaining wall and what is something else? Is the retaining wall completely encircle the whole building site? What's the heavy black line?
No, it doesn't. It only, it's on the sides. It's just on the sides of the driveway where it crosses that.
So is the heavy black line erosion control?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. The only
it doesn't show up clearly. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of, who knows?
It shows very clearly in the 24 by 36 inch sheet.
Yeah.
We can't hear you, Charlie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I think part of the problem that you're having right now is that these plans are 24 by 36, and you're looking at it on a screen, a small screen. I assume that's why. When I review the plans, I had no problem seeing the problems.
I'm sorry, we really can't hear you.
Yeah, I think kind of what he's trying to get at is that the plans, like the hard copy, are probably a lot easier to read. I think they are a lot easier to read in person as opposed to looking at them on the small screen.
Yeah, so this entire line is proposed erosion control straw wattle.
Just a couple of more quickies here. So the erosion control might need to be modified to do your wetland replication in some way. I'm just throwing that out there. And another question I might have is about the proposed well. I don't know if there's anything in the application that goes into some kind of settling pond or some mechanism to kind of keep that stuff under control. I think that's what all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Bob?
Yeah, Peter, I just had a question for Sam, and again, it was following up on my previous hearing. What comments did DEP offer on the filing when the number was issued? Or were
Don't
there any?
believe there were.
I didn't have any.
Yeah, there were
Okay.
no comments.
Okay,
It was just a filing fee question.
thank you. I have no other questions.
Thanks, Bob.
Always a filing fee question.
Yeah.
Diane, do you have any questions at this time?
No,
Okay. TJ?
No, I don't.
I'm wondering, and I want to bounce this off the commission. This is a significant involvement of a wetland area. And I think it might be appropriate for the new commissioners to have an opportunity to see the site and do a site walk prior to kind of wrapping this up. I think that might be beneficial to get an appreciation of the ledge, the things that have been mentioned, and where the replication area is projected to be. And I'm throwing that out for discussion.
I mean, that would be okay with me. One of the questions that I have looked at the pictures that were submitted. And one question I did kind of have was why the proposed wetland replication wasn't closer to where the intermittent stream was. And but I can't really get a sense of the distance or the vegetation in the area. So
Is
I would
that
give
Diane
you-
who just asked that?
yes, I'm sorry, Diane
Yes.
O'Brien.
No worries, no worries. I just can't see anyone on my screen.
My
So
fault.
yeah, so this, I can note on that. So the wetland replication is in an area where there, I mean, it's streamlined to an area. So this is all wetland, right? So we don't want to replicate in that area. And then this is a pond here. Just to kind of get a sense as to where you are. So the only kind of upland area that would be, you know, maybe more so that we could include would be this, but this kind of gives, you know, a better ratio to kind of form into the existing wetland now. If that makes
Thank
sense.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Thank you.
Pete, from my viewpoint, I actually did drive by and look at this, although it's probably not as easy just to drive by and look at it. But I mean, I'm comfortable without doing a site walk, but certainly if everyone wants to, I'll have no objection.
And Mr. Chair, I do want to just make a quick note. You know, Mr. Patassi is ready to move forward with this. And I know with Charlie kind of being a little bit not able to hear, but more or less we are looking to move forward as soon as possible. So obviously we will look to the commission if they find it absolutely necessary to go out to this site. But you know, we really love to try to close this.
I appreciate the push, Devin. I really think the commissioner should at least walk it. And I have no problem. We can walk it in the next week or so. We can get back in here, you know, just so people can have an appreciation, and if appropriate, we can follow this up on the 2nd of August. Is that okay with commissioners? I just want to, I've kind of got Bob's plus or minus. Diane?
Yeah, Pete, that'll be good.
Okay. TJ?
Yes, I'd like to walk it.
Okay, cool. Then I'm hearing the direction, and I think our other commissioners, Mary, you think that'd be valuable?
I think it would be valuable, and I think it will give the applicants some time to address some of the other comments that were had, and some of the plan details that will be able to be clarified between now and the next meeting.
Beautiful. Dan?
Yeah, I'll always go for a walk.
All right, everybody's got to bring their boots on this one, okay? Everybody bring their boots. Okay, let's look at a date. Pulling up. So our next meeting that we're going to try to get this in on for the applicant's sake would be the 2nd of August. Unfortunately, I am going to be leaving out of town tomorrow, so I will not be available the next couple of days, but that doesn't mean that walk cannot occur. Or we can look at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week.
Tuesday or Wednesday in the morning, best.
We
For
could do
me?
morning. Yeah, we could do morning. Yeah, absolutely. So is Tuesday, the 26th a possibility, or is Wednesday the,
Tuesday works best for me.
okay?
That would work, that would work good for me as well. Pete.
Perfect. Tuesday, the 26th. Let's see, mosquitoes get most busy right around 9:30. So do you want to make it a little bit before then?
8
Yes.
o'clock, 8
At
o'clock.
8 o'clock. Okay, so we're looking at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, the 26th of July. Wonderful, for a sidewalk. And then we will continue this for the 2nd of August. And we can have those questions that have been brought up by commissioners, perhaps addressed and wrapped up. Does that sound good to everyone?
Great.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
I would be happy to entertain a motion. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this? Thanks very much. That's all the look, Sam.
I don't see anybody with their hands still up. Marty did have his hand up for a second. I don't know if you had any.
The only question was, when's the next meeting?
It'll be August 2nd.
Yeah, okay. Can we try and wrap this up soon? I mean, this has been going on, what, April?
Appreciate that comment very much. Thank you. All right. So I'd entertain a motion to continue this to the 2nd of August with the site walk on the 26th of July.
So moved.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Any discussion on the motion? All right. How do we vote? Bob?
Yes.
Great. TJ?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Great. Chairs in favor as well. Beautiful, everyone. Thanks very much. And we'll see you all on the site walk, and then we'll have our continuation on the 2nd of August. Sam, did you have a question about something?
No.
Okay, beautiful. Great.
Thank you so much to the commission members, and welcome to the new commission members. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening.
Thanks very much, Deb. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right, continuing on our agenda, Gage Foley, 7 Bittersweet Lane, DEP is not assigned a notice of intent for the construction of a new single-family home with septic system and associated site work. Sam?
We do have a DEP number for this one.
Excellent.
Yay. This one is 050-1385. Woo. And Tom is here to present this one.
Beautiful.
Good
Okay,
evening.
Tom.
Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. Here tonight with Steve Sawyer, who did the engineering work on the project. And while you guys have heard this before, I have to run through the project again because it's a de novo hearing due to the quorum issue that occurred. So let me share my screen and I'll give a walk through the project. Okay, so this is a lot on Bittersweet Lane. Gage Foley is part of the Foley family, and the Foley family has owned this land for years, and basically grandfather lives up on the hill, brother lives down at the end. I think I've got that right. And basically what Gage is looking to do is build his home within this sort of family compound, so to speak. So let me just run through a couple things. During our original hearing, one of the things that DEP commented on was that they noticed that on the USGS map, and I will zoom into this a little bit, you can see the blue line here. There is a mapped perennial stream that shows as running through the property. It actually shows from coming from the pond in the central green there and running down under Green Street and over down behind the homes on Bittersweet there. So that stream really doesn't exist in that form on site. So we ended up having some delay in getting the file number. We ended up having to pay the riverfront fee, and then we went through a process, which I'm going to jump to right here. There's a couple things I want to note, that if it were a perennial stream, the stream runs through 2 culverts. Those culverts or pipes are both longer than 200 feet. Because of that, riverfront stops at the inlet and starts at the outlet. And so if we have observations that we believe prove it's intermittent, if it were to be perennial, it's funny how this works, but our proposed septic system and our proposed house are all out of riverfront. Riverfront exists where the green is. The outer limit is not, I haven't scaled where it ends, you know, here and here, but it essentially runs perpendicular to the pipes, and then riverfront would exist up and downstream. However, we went through a process of observations, and I conducted 4 observations in April, and then talked to DEP, and they said they preferred to have pictures up and downstream on site. I had only gotten pictures at the furthest most culvert outlet. I had observed the rest of the area, and I only took picture upstream on one day, but I did have 4 consecutive days of no flow in the channel in April. After talking to DEP, I decided, okay, I'll replicate it. So I replicated it in May. At the time I did these, the drought monitor had not listed us in a drought. We documented those. And then I got an email from DEP saying that the secretary had retroactively declared a drought to May 1st. So that negated all of my May readings. However, I would put to you that what I submitted in April, combined with the commission's knowledge of this site and understanding that there are no impoundments upstream, based on my observations, and I think the observations of commission members who visited the site, this is not a perennial stream. You can't even imagine this thing flowing year round. And I have been there a number of times when it's been dry during just normal conditions. It is a stream that flows during snow melt and the high water table of the spring. And as the water table drops going into summer, it just totally dries up. So we are asking that you find it's an intermittent stream, because I think that's the proper classification for it. From a regulatory point of view, again, going down to that graphic, just while this is crude, it does show you that none of our alterations are actually in riverfront, with the possible exception of the removal of a pipe here and the installation of the pipe kind of right here. That's it. And then we will be shortening the length of this pipe when we do the replacement, which will then, after we're done, make this area here back into riverfront if it's perennial. So with that, and probably Mary's the only one on the commission who even remotely followed what I just went through, because the 200-foot pipe thing doesn't happen a lot. Now back to the project. So that is USGS perennial stream issue. Here's an aerial photograph of the site. So off of Green Street at the corner of Green and Bittersweet, you've got, you know, a pretty good sized wetland complex. It drains from this field here, gets wet, and you've all, if you've driven by there, you've all seen that in the kind of late winter, early spring. And when this field is wet, then the stream flows. When this field dries up, the stream dries up. So you've got a wetland complex, it kind of turns into a narrow ditch, and then you have one pipe that has kind of a couple bends in it. It opens up in this area, and then there's another pipe that then extends further down and actually behind the riding ring that we were talking about. Actually, yeah, the riding ring that's further down right here is where that second pipe opens up. So I think now let me go to the most recent plan. So after our first hearing and to document this, the commission at that hearing asked us to make some changes to the location of the septic field to move it further away than we originally proposed from the wetlands and from the stream. They also asked about issues related to how is this pipe maintained with all the bends in it? Was there something we could do? In response to those concerns, we have made changes, and Steve can go over these, but we have moved the septic field further away. And we've also proposed replacing that pipe with a straight shot rather than one with the bends in it. So it's much more maintainable. If it were to clog up, a straight pipe is so much easier to deal with than one with bends in it. That also will reduce the pipe length to 180 feet, which, if it were to be a perennial stream, would mean that it would you'd gain riverfront jurisdiction where you don't have it. However, again, it's my contention this is in no way a perennial stream. And I believe we've submitted enough documentation to prove that and meet the performance standards of the regs for proving that. We're proposing a driveway. We have to convert this drive to a shared drive. Steve can talk about that. And then a driveway down to a single family home with a garage and some limited grading coming off. It's really pretty straightforward single family home. We show perimeter control running the length of the stream and kind of along behind the proposed grading areas and up around to the intersection with Bittersweet. Overall, it's a pretty simple single family home project, entirely buffer zone with the exception of the pipe replacement, which is essentially replacing in kind with no permanent impacts beyond what's currently there. And if anything, it's an improvement because it gets rid of those bends in the pipe. With that, Steve, can you just go over quickly kind of what you were able to do in terms of relocation of the septic and minimizing those impacts?
Yeah, sure. So what we did is originally I turned the septic system from the original plan 90 degrees, pulled it back. I think I got it about 8 or 10, probably about 10 feet further back. We did have to locate the field within where the soil testing was done, and we were somewhat limited on the property of the location of good soil. So we pulled it to about 60 feet from the nearest BBW, I believe, was the offset there. The field itself, it's a 4-bedroom field, trench system with the reserve area in between. And then as far as the distribution, it'll be a pressure dose system, which is the best way to evenly distribute the effluent for the longevity of the system, and just for just a state-of-the-art way to handle the septic effluent. And as far as currently the driveways used for a common driveway for 2 of the homes, it'll need to be expanded to handle one additional home, 3, which is allowed in the common driveway provisions. We will need to get a special permit for that. Most of that work, most of that work is out of the buffer. It's just I think a sliver is in the outer 100 foot. This is basically the heavy lift as far as the permitting. The permit for the driveway should be fairly straightforward, but we are required to widen it. Right now, I think it's 14 feet wide. We are required to widen it to 16 feet wide to meet the standard. We're widening it on the side away from the wetland. So any of the widening is outside of the 100-foot buffer. And as you're driving up the driveway, the natural flow of the water is across the driveway from right to left if you're driving towards the homes. And so what we're with just 3 homes, you're not required to meet any DEP stormwater standards. However, what we are providing is a 2-foot wide stone diaphragm trench where any of the flow off the driveway will bleed into this trench and either infiltrate into the ground, or during heavy events, it'll continue on across the grass. But any sediment or potential pollutants would be trapped in that stone diaphragm edge drain. So with that, there will be I'm showing the new easement. Right now, currently, there's no easement. It's basically a family compound out there, so there's no need for it. But with this, as we move forward with the common drive special permit, we'll implement an easement for the driveway, which is, really not needed now, but down the road, years down, as the property transpires to other owners, that all needs to be properly monumented, which will be done during that process. I think it was asked that we submit the septic plan to the board, to the health department. It was submitted a couple weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. I did call in today. Ginger in the health department said we should be getting. They didn't see any issues or they didn't foresee any issues with the plan. I've never had issues with any plan submitted to the health department, but they thought that we'd get our approval by the end of the week. So I think that covers the engineering aspects of the project.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Chairman, one more thing I'd like to mention, just because it is a new record. The site visit did conduct a site visit during the earlier hearings, reviewed the wetland lines. We did make some very minor adjustments. I think we added a flag and adjusted a flag, if I recall right. And then I added some areas that were not previously delineated to clarify where the resource areas were in the event that, you know, down the road, something that the homeowner were to want to move, because there is some upland area that is on the other side of some of the wetlands. So all of that was done, and all that's incorporated into this plan.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Sam, anything to add to this or any concerns?
Not from me.
Okay, great. Let me ask commission members. Mary, any concerns or thoughts?
No, I mean, I am in agreement with Tom that I don't think this is a river. According to the meaning of a river, when the Rivers Act was established, whether or not you have enough documentation to satisfy DEP that it's not a river may is to be determined, I guess, because we're in a drought right now and you can't make the observations in a drought, and your observations that were made in April, I guess, weren't extensive enough in their view. So there's it's up for debate whether or not they would intervene in a case like this, where, you know, if we make a determination that it's not a river, based on the limited observations that have been made. But I think if you have an opportunity to see the site, you can understand why it doesn't look like a river, doesn't feel like a river in it by any stretch. The special permit, I guess, you know, technically we're supposed to have all applications, other local applications that are required applied for at the time you apply for the notice of intent, but that perhaps could be conditioned. I don't really have it. I've walked the site. I don't have any particular concerns about this. It seems pretty straightforward, but I understand that other people have not, so I'll let them weigh in on what their thoughts are.
Thanks, Mary. Dan, anything to add?
Just a question on, is it at all significant that there are 3 or 4 manholes in Bittersweet Lane that feed into this pipe, and the sizing of the pipe? I can't really see what it probably says, what, a 12-inch or something?
Yeah, let me take a stab at it, and if we need more, we can turn to Steve. But the existing pipe, I think, is 12-inch. We're replacing in the same size. We're just straightening it. It does not appear to be overwhelmed in terms of capacity. I just don't think it sees that much flow. It's a tiny watershed area, and there is no sign whatsoever that it ever gets backed up. There's no staining or erosion or signs of overland flow around the inlets. And so I think it's adequate, and it's always a delicate thing if you start changing pipe sizes on what you might change, to the point that was raised in an earlier hearing tonight. When you mess with hydrology or hydraulics and all that without fully modeling it, you can end up creating an unforeseen problem, and we'd rather just keep it kind of static where it's at. There doesn't appear to be a problem with the pipe size. I do think that the old pipe configuration that exists right now is just asking for something to get washed down there one day and kind of clog it up, and by straightening it out, we certainly make it easier to maintain it.
The only other, thing I might add is just, I think the erosion control has got to be expanded while you replace that pipe.
Oh, right. Okay. We do have it. We have it here around the pipe work, but you're thinking maybe.
Okay, I can't see it, but
yeah, no. So the red line, we have an additional, if you look at the red line on the screen right here, that's our perimeter control. And there's an additional line where we get close to this wetland. If you're on site, you know that this area here is actually fairly elevated and very minimal risk, but we can certainly add additional erosion controls around the length of the pipe work that's being done.
All right, I might suggest a condition.
Yeah. Yeah, and we would accept that condition readily.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Bob, do you have anything, sir?
No questions, Pete. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Diane, do you have anything?
Just one, and I don't know if it's something that the commission would answer, or maybe Sam, we can have a discussion at some point, but if it's mapped as a perennial stream now, I don't quite know what the actual process is for us to determine, to use our authority to then determine that it's an intermittent stream. Is that something we can just decide based on pictures and a site visit, or?
So let me take a stab at answering that. In the regulations, there are a couple key things. There are things that define when a stream is a river, and being mapped by USGS is kind of one of the big defaults. But then you do have the ability through 4 consecutive days of observation of no flow, and that's the language of the regulations pretty much, to demonstrate that the stream is not flowing. So they recognize USGS is not always perfect, and that's the way that you get out of it being a perennial stream. DEP in recent years, I guess, has started looking for more documentation because they claim that you might have an upstream impoundment that somehow impacts flow site-wide. We've always, up until then, always gotten just pictures of the downstream point on site. The furthest down that you're impacting anywhere near is where you document, because the definition of a perennial stream is a perennial stream starts where an intermittent stream becomes perennial. So to me, they're looking for upstream observations doesn't really make sense, because if I show that it's intermittent at one point, absent an obvious impoundment upstream, that observation should be valid. And I believe what I've submitted for the April observations is enough for the commission to make that finding. I think it's the right finding to make. I do think that DEP, I don't anticipate DEP would appeal this. I think they understand that even if it were perennial, we have 0 alteration proposed. While maybe with the strip along the roadway, we might have like 20 square feet of riverfront in the outer riparian that we're altering, but it's so insignificant. And I do think that the commission can include that they conducted a site visit and they've observed that there are no obvious impoundments in the record of the decision. But, we could get an approval either way and we'll be happy with it. I just think that it's the right thing to recognize that this is just not a river. And, calling it a river has implications for other neighbors that I think are unfair when we all know it's not. And unfortunately, the drought has hit us at a bad time to be able to, get 4 pictures a day, which is again just overkill. In this situation, there may be situations where it makes more sense, but this is not one.
Okay, thanks, Tom. That did answer my question.
Thanks, Diane. TJ.
I have no questions.
Great. And what is the will of the commission? Is the will of the commission to, let me see. Oh, is there anyone from the public, Sam, before I go there?
Not that I can see.
Okay. What is the will of the commission? Is the will of the commission to issue a notice of intent? If so, I would entertain a motion.
Pete, do we have to close the public hearing first?
Thank you, sir. I'll take a motion to close the public hearing. Thank you, Bob.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
I appreciate that very much.
I'll
Thank you for being
second that.
honest. Is there a second to Bob's motion?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Bob, we'll start with you. How do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Thank you. TJ.
Yes.
Thanks, Diane.
Yes.
Diane, and Dan?
Yep.
Thank you. And Mary?
Yes.
All right, chairs in favor as well of closing the hearing. And is there a motion that the commission would like to take for action?
I'll take a stab at it. That we issue an order of conditions approving the project as presented with findings that based on the information submitted by the applicant, that the waterway is not a river, and that the replacement of the culvert or the pipe be done under dry conditions when the stream is not flowing, since that shouldn't be problematic since it doesn't seem to flow very often. And I don't see any other special conditions that I can think of. So that's the extent of my motion.
That's the
Can I,
motion.
can I ask one question?
Was there two conditions before?
Say that again?
Were there two conditions, one on the common driveway and one on erosion control?
Yes.
Previously? Okay.
Yep.
So, Sam,
Mary, you said findings that it's not a river. Is that not a river, or is that it's an intermittent stream?
Isn't it one and the same? Yes, we can, that it's an intermittent stream. We find that the waterway is an intermittent stream and doesn't qualify as a river. But it doesn't have a riverfront area associated with it.
Okay.
all right, there has been a motion, rather lengthy and detailed and appreciated. And is there a second to that?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
I have
All right.
one question, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
If it's determined, so then this goes to DEP, and then if they decide that in fact it is a perennial stream, then they'll just appeal that and it comes back to us, right?
Or it
They'll
goes to
appeal it
them.
and they'll do their own review. And
That Tom will
investigation.
have to take it to them, and
Okay.
review it with them.
That's my only discussion then, thank you.
Yep.
If I can just ask one quick question, can your findings reference the pre-drought observations? To make it clear to DEP that you are, and perhaps your site visit as well? I think that would be helpful to be clear that that's what you're relying on, not drought observations.
Right, good point.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. On the motion, TJ, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Diane?
Yes.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
Chair is in favor as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Tom. And last on the agenda, clocking in at 9:44, which gives us 15 minutes to wrap it up, folks, before the witching hour of 10 o'clock. Ben McGarry, 10th Street, DP 050-1378. Notice of intent to replace two single-family homes on an existing lot, one of which was destroyed by fire, with a new single-family homes constructed on piles. Sam, who do we have?
Again.
Yep. Good evening. Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. I believe Doug Deshane, who handled the zoning or is handling the zoning application, is also present. My understanding is that the issues at zoning were pretty much wrapped up at the last meeting. There's a meeting Thursday where I expect they'll actually vote approval. We're going to present tonight, and if the commission is satisfied, we're going to ask that you prepare an order for the next meeting, but we would continue and leave the hearing open just on the outside chance that Thursday's zoning meeting renders any changes. And Doug is certainly here to answer any questions about the zoning process if they come up, or if I go way outside the bounds of law, I'm sure he'll slap me right back into it. So anyway, let me share a screen. And again, this is going to be a de novo hearing because of the quorum issue. So let me pull this up. All right. So 10th Street. Okay, so this is 10th Street as it existed before the fire. Fairly densely developed, two structures, a large gravel driveway. You can see it right there. So we'll get through all this paperwork. It's located on Plum Island, a barrier beach within a coastal dune. Again, here's an aerial photograph showing its condition, the condition of the lot. You can see pretty heavily impacted. It is not within the floodplain. It's located within the X flood zone. Here's some photographs building up near the street. You can see this is kind of the old demo area. There's a little indentation in the ground where the old foundation was. You can see some of the demo debris kind of on the surface and the large gravel area here. Okay, so when we came into you guys, we had all this gravel at the first hearing. One of the things the commission asked us to do is, can we clean that up, reduce that, and clarify some of the planting issues? So what we have done, and let me see, is after we got far enough through zoning that I was confident that our structures were no longer going to be moving around, we basically finalized the plan. We have reduced the amount of gravel, basically cleaned it up to be a turnaround here. We did extend some of the parking off to the left of this structure, basically to try to get it all to fit. Every place that you see that is not otherwise shown is going to be planted 1 foot on center with American beach grass if it's not already vegetated. And there is a note to that effect on the project plan. Let me zoom in a little bit because at this scale, the lines are kind of merging a little bit. All right, so here you can get a better sense of what we've got proposed for the parking areas. We tried to rely more on some of the more heavily impacted areas and kind of trying to narrow up the big, large existing gravel driveway here. And that will give us areas that we can revegetate in here. We do have a patio area back here, but the rest of this area will all be vegetated. There is an encroaching fence that will be removed and put back. We'll be putting a fence back along just off the property line back here. So it's really pretty straightforward. There is an impact table, and basically we're increasing the vegetated area on site by a little over 600 square feet. All in all, it's a project that includes a couple small buildings on a lot that is allowed to have them because it's sort of grandfathered from a zoning point of view, and the zoning part of it is wrapping up. So with that, everything's elevated up on piles. There are profile plans in the package. Those profiles have not changed, and I think that, let me pull them up, actually, this one. So here are the profiles showing open pile foundations elevated up above grade. In this case, because we're not in a floodplain, we're required to at least have them 2 feet above grade. We're significantly more than that because of underbuilding parking. So, you know, this is a nice back dune area that's not within the floodplain, and I think we've got a sensitive design, meets the dune performance standards, meets the standards within the bylaw, and we're happy to answer any questions, and we'd ask you to consider asking the agent to begin the preparation of an order of conditions for the next hearing.
Thanks very much, Tom. Sam, do you have anything?
I don't. I would like to note that there is a draft of special conditions in the Dropbox for you guys already. That's been in there for a few weeks now. Again, it's just a draft based off of the standard conditions, and I think that obviously the zoning process is mostly separate from what we do, but the admin assistant for conservation is also the admin assistant for the zoning board. So I've been kind of kept in the loop with what's going on with that. And I think that Ben and his representatives have have definitely done everything that they've been asked to do and then some to get this all in compliance and to work with the requests that have been made for them. So I don't really have any concerns about this project.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Sam. Let me just run it through commissioners. Mary, any concerns or questions?
No, I was just reviewing DEP's comments on it. They had to do mostly with identifying existing dune vegetation on the site and quantifying what the changes were going to be, and that's been done on this plan. I think it's an improvement to what was there before, and it seems to be in compliance with the bylaw. So I don't recall, did you discuss the foundation plan? I don't remember going through that just now. Do we have a foundation plan, or are you talking about steel piles, or how is this?
Yeah,
supported?
Right. It is steel piles. And if you, again, this is usually, I have to say, usually Everett's plans scale well. This one, actually proposed wood pile in a couple spots for landings and everything, but the rest of it is steel. So you can see at this scale, you can start to see the piles. For some reason, when we zoom out on the pile on this plan, all the colors are kind of merging over the detail.
And we have profiles of the buildings themselves, I believe.
Yes, yeah, that was in the profile sheet, hasn't changed, and that is this sheet right here.
Right. Okay, I have no further comments.
Thanks, Mary. Dan, do you have anything, sir?
Just, Tom, is there any kind of, skirt type affair there? Or is it just all wide open below the?
I believe it's all wide open. And that's, I believe, the way it's shown. Doug, do you have any information from your zoning filing? Do you have any kind of indication there's any kind of skirting going down? I mean, it would be allowable up to, down to 2 feet above grade, since we're not in the floodplain. But let me just ask if Doug can make sure that I'm correct on that.
Doug, you're muted.
He's not muted, but we can't hear him. I can see you talking. Yeah, it's not.
All right, Doug, do you just want to text me the answer?
Tom, I can weigh in here.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yep. Hey, David.
Hey, David Daly, the proponent / builder here. Yeah, there's going to be no skirting on the piles.
All right, very good, thanks.
All right. Thank you, David. That was my understanding. I just wanted to make sure, because this has been through a lot of zoning, and sometimes, people start talking about design and things like that.
Yep.
There.
Thank you, Dan. Bob, any questions, sir?
No, it looks good to me. It looks like a good improvement for that area. Thank you.
Beautiful, Bob. Thank you. Diane?
Nope, I've been following this because I was curious as to how you were going to get 2 buildings, and it looks good to me.
Okay, great. TJ?
Good to go.
All right. I don't have any additional questions, so I think we just have to wait till this clears zoning. It looks like we already have a draft document with conditions. With a direction in our Dropbox. So I think it'd be probably most appropriate to continue this to the 2nd of August, and hopefully everything will be wrapped up with zoning.
Public comment.
Thank you. I was just about to get there. Is there any public comment, Sam?
I am not seeing anything, and sorry to kind of throw a wrench in it.
Yeah.
The one thing that I just thought of, the certificate of compliance for the previous order of conditions, which was for the removal of the foundation of the house on the rear side that was the one that burned down. We still haven't gotten any requests for that. I don't know if that's something that we can throw into, like, as a special condition, just that, say, before a pre-construction meeting can be.
We will just get it in before. We'll get it in before the next meeting, because that does not require public notice. So we can just We had originally thrown that out there to see whether that was going to be done by the folks who were selling the property or whether we were going to have to do it. And I think that, I apologize, it's just been so long that fell by the wayside. So we will pick that back up in one way or another. There'll be a COC application, in before you guys for action at the next meeting. And perhaps we should put it ahead of this on the agenda so that
Sounds like a good
it's
idea.
closed out before you act.
All right, very good. Thank you, Tom.
right,
That
thank you.
being the case, I would love to entertain a motion to continue this to the 2nd of August.
So
I'll
moved.
make second.
All right, there's a motion and it's been seconded. Sam, you got that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Any discussion? Okay, how do we vote? Diane?
Yes.
Yes. TJ?
Yes.
All right, Dan?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
All right, the chair's in favor as well. That being the case, folks, I don't see anything else on our agenda, and I'm looking and I see 9:57 on my timepiece.
Well
Is there anything
done.
else- anything we need to talk about, Sam?
Not that I can think of.
Beautiful. So before we turn into pumpkins, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion
Move
to
for
adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any discussion? All right. How do we vote, TJ?
Yes.
Great. Bob?
Yes.
Dan?
Yep.
Mary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
All right. Chairs in favor as well. Everyone, thank you very much. Sam,
Thank you.
thanks. Everybody have a great evening.
Good
Thanks,
night,
Pete.
everybody.
Okay.
Good night.